Attention all Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn radio listeners. The Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast brings you the best in East Coast esoterica on the first of every month. Together, we can keep it growing by sharing the show on social media, subscribing to the show wherever you may be listening to it from, and by leaving feedback about your favorite episodes. John certainly needs a friend like you to help make his dreams come true, minus the alien abduction dreams. That is not cool at all. The Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast. Always available, always free, always odd.
Go away!
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. And a Happy New Year.
By the way, congratulate me this Christmas. I'm going for it. No antidepressants.
Somebody ought to teach that little humbug some Christmas spirit.
I could feel the Christmas noose beginning to tighten. Maybe what happened next was inevitable.
Ralphie, what would you like for Christmas?
Horrified, I heard myself blurt it out.
I want an official Red Ryder Carbine Action 200 range-ball air rifle.
Ooh.
No. Shoot your eye out.
What do you call this, Edith, huh?
That was a Christmas present.
What fathead to spend any money on a thing like that?
From your mother.
I must find some way to keep Christmas from coming.
That's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown.
It's the odd to Newfoundland. Ghostly greetings from your host, Jonathan. Mysteries, ghosts, monsters and lore, East Coast esoterica and so much more. If it's up to you, friend, it's on the up to Newfoundland.
Ghostly greetings from the oldest city in North America. I'm your host, John Mallard, bringing you the best in East Coast esoterica. You, my friends, have stumbled upon the Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast for the month of December 2016. Can you feel it? The Christmas spirit. It's around every corner. It's very warm, and what can I say? It can be just a little bit odd to Newfoundland. Guys, welcome to the show. Gotta say this right off the top of my head here before I forget. Merry Christmas to you all. And for everybody else, happy holidays. Yes, I am a practicing Christian, just to let you guys know. But you know what? It's everyone's holiday. It's awesome. And if you don't have any affiliation with any kind of religion, happy Santa Day to you all. Guys, tonight's show is brought to you by Donuts and Dragons. Yeah, that's right. We finally have our first official sponsor here at the Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast. He is planning on opening up Donuts and Dragons board game and cafe will be opening up, of course, in January. This is awesome for everybody who's into board games, everyone who likes coffee. I mean, sit down with your friends, have a coffee, not be on your phones for a while, and do something that we used to do when we were kids. So much fun. Not only that, there's also very adult games out there as well. I mean, I think of Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. I'm sure there's people out there who've heard of that before. So you know what? Donuts and Dragons board game cafe. Thank you so very, very much for being the sponsor of my podcast tonight. And what a podcast it is. Tonight we are going to be joined by not one, not two, but three super awesome guests. That's really, really, really awesome. Okay, gotta say this. Gotta say it first. Eric Altman's back tonight. Yes! We all love Eric so much. He just had a wonderful, very hairy Squatchmas with me last year, so I said, why the hell not? Let's have him on again this year. Eric was very gracious enough to grace the podcast once again. Thank you, Eric. Merry Squatchmas to you. And two newbies. Yeah, two guys I've never had on before. The men behind SasWhat, a podcast about Bigfoot, Seth Breedlove and Mark Matzke, will also be joining me for the second interview portion of this show. Awesome interview. Those guys are very cordial and just very nice. What can I say? I really enjoyed talking to them. And you know what? Eric, of course, is one of the hosts, man behind Beyond the Edge Radio. Check that out. It usually comes on Sundays. And the SasWhat podcast, of course, that's a downloadable podcast. They're all over the place, but you can check them out. 2 great shows. Got to promote the heck out of my guys because they support me. Why should I not support them? If you're a fellow podcaster and you'd like to be on the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal podcast, get the name of your stuff out there, you know what? Turnabout's fair play. I'd love to be on yours as well. I am your host, Jonathan Mallard, and I would love to be your guest. Guys, Christmas is upon us. Such an exciting time of year. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I've got a son this year. So different. Very, very different from what I'm used to. I have a little girl and a little boy. I have the gentleman's family. And now I look at my Christmas tree and realize, my God, this is not about me at all. It's all about them. So just very happy to find them healthy and happy. 2017, of course, is looking up. I'm getting in shape, so to speak. Yeah, I just dropped 10 pounds. I started eating healthier and stuff. This goes right along, of course, with the fact that I quit smoking back in last January. I'll be almost a year quit smoking. My next podcast, I will not have had a cigarette for an entire year. So there you go. I'm down 10 pounds. I've got smoking conquered. I'm feeling pretty great, and I hope you guys are feeling pretty great too. Because let's be honest, I want to be able to keep doing this podcast for many years to come. And it's not going to be able to be done if I'm, sitting at home eating potato chips all the time and smoking cigarettes and my voice is going to go. Can you imagine if I was like totally bad with the old woman? I just think of the old woman bad cigarette voice. The whole like,
yes. Welcome to my podcast.
I can hear that now.
Ghostly greetings from the oldest city in North America.
Oh, God. If y'all haven't hung up yet and turned this thing off, I do appreciate it. Christmas is such a special time, but it's also full of traditions and just weirdness. Newfoundland has its share of weirdness, such as mummering, which is literally going out dressed up funny and getting drunk at people's houses. Yeah, it's like the Halloween we all really wanted to have on the 31st last month. Let's think a little tiny bit about this, though. I can't, one of my favorite Christmas specials, I don't know about you guys, is Scrooge. A Christmas Carol. I just love that. And I actually watched it with my father tonight before I recorded this. And what can I say? It just still holds true. And it dawned on me a little while ago, though, why I probably like this so much. It's the fact that there's 4 ghosts in it. I didn't really think about it that way before. My God, it's one big, long ghost story. I think Scrooge is probably my favorite one. You know what? Why don't you show me some love on Facebook. Show me some love when you see this link go up and you're listening to my show. Why don't you just post what your favorite Christmas special is, just for fun, seeing as how this is a very hairy Squatchmas. So, without further ado, I think it's time we get this Christmas choo-choo train, this Polar Express of the paranormal, on its rails, and we'll jump into something kind of festive. That's right, it's time for the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal News, and I think our first story is going to leave you a little bit chilly, seeing as how snow is, part of this season. Well, how about some half-buried pyramids that have been spotted in Antarctica? This is an interesting one. An eagle-eyed internet user has spotted some peculiar pyramid-shaped structures on Google Earth. The latest in a series of anomalous objects spotted on the search giant's satellite mapping service, the controversial find has been generating a lot of discussion online over the last few days. Referred to as snow pyramids, these structures each appear to have 4 sides and have been regarded by some as evidence of an undiscovered ancient civilization. They'd be like the coldest cavemen ever. Sadly, though, it seems far more likely that the pyramids are actually rocky peaks known as nunataks, which are essentially the tops of mountains protruding through the ice. The distinctive straight edges and flat sides are the result of natural erosion over millions of years. Or could this actually be a sign that somebody was there before? Yeah. Could it be that there's actually pyramids in Antarctica? What an interesting idea. What an interesting fact. I wonder. Either way, just thinking of Antarctica right now is definitely, making me kind of cold. I don't know about you. I like to be warm because as soon as I get cold, I usually end up with, you guessed it, a cold. But can being cold really give you the cold? This is my next bit of paranormal news. This is really interesting, I thought. It has long been considered something of an old wives' tale, but could there really be some truth to it? Most people remember being told to wrap up warm as a child to avoid getting a cold, but this idea tends to be dismissed these days on the basis that the common cold is caused by the rhinovirus, not low temperatures. You have to pick it up off someone else, right? One of the biggest stumbling blocks for scientists researching this subject is that, while it has long been believed that the rhinovirus replicates more readily in colder environments, the exact reason for this has remained tantalizingly elusive. Now, though, Assistant Professor Ellen Foxman and colleagues at the Yale University School of Medicine have finally been able to make some headway on the matter of determining that the immune system of laboratory mice produce fewer proteins known as interferons in lower temperatures, thus making it easier for the rhinovirus to flourish. In a new study published this year, the team also found similar results in human cells. The immune pathways responsible for blocking viral growth are more active in warmer temperatures. So while being cold cannot in itself cause the common cold, if you're out in the cold, you won't necessarily get the cold. If you've already picked up the virus in your nose, then staying warm can help to stop the symptoms from developing. If the virus isn't in your nose, it can't cause infection, said Foxman. Now, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? All my life, I've been lied to by my mother and father. They always said, you go out in the cold, you're going to catch a cold. You know what? Nothing could be further from the truth. Well, thank God Santa Claus is real. That's all I'm going to say. What can I say? Nobody really predicted the whole Trump victory, right? It was a pretty well shocking thing to the whole world. But what if I told you that maybe somebody did predict it, and somebody who's notorious for predicting things in the future from hundreds of years ago? Did Nostradamus predict Trump's victory in the recent American election? Both modern-day and historical prophets may have foreseen the Republican candidate's rise to power. With the unexpected victory of Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton in the U.S. election, a great deal of criticism has been leveled at the polls, which had long predicted a very different outcome. But what if Trump's success actually had been predicted not within the last few months, but years or even centuries ago by individuals who had nothing to do with the election campaign whatsoever? This is the controversial view shared by a growing number of people who believe that 16th century French prophet Nostradamus had foreseen these events hundreds of years ago. Among his vast array of predictions are references to a great, shameless, audacious baller who will be elected governor of the army and render the city faint from fear. Some believe that these words are a reference to Trump and that it is also foreshadowing World War III. Another prophet, the Bulgarian psychic Baba Vanga, who died in 96, has also gained something of a following after accurately predicting events that occurred after her death, including the 9/11 attacks, the rise of the Islamic State, and the fact that the 44th U.S. president would be African American. She also predicted that Obama would be the last U.S. president, another possible hint of World War III. But are these really references to recent events, or people simply looking too hard to connect vague predictions from the past to what is happening in the present? It's no secret that Nostradamus wrote a huge amount of material during his lifetime. If you look hard enough at his writings, you can usually find predictions that reference just about everything. But let me just read the actual verse to you guys and let you guys make up your own mind here. All right, here it goes. I'll actually read the prediction by Nostradamus right now, what he wrote in one of his quatrains, actually 4 of them. Remember, that you hear the word trumpet, we're trying to link it to Trump, okay? It makes sense. Trump, okay? Trumpet, you get it. False trumpet concealing madness with cause bends in time to change its laws. From Egypt there will go forth a man who wants the edict withdrawn, changing money and standards. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood, the face anointed with milk, and honey lies on the ground. The great Senate will ordain the triumph. For one who afterwards will be vanquished, driven out. At the sound of the trumpet of his adherents, there will be put up for sale their possessions, enemies expelled. The republic of the great city will not want to consent to the great severity. Kings summoned by trumpet to go out, the ladder at the wall, the city will repent. That last one really gets me because, you know what? It says kings summoned by trumpet to go out. The ladder at the wall, the city will repent. The ladder at the wall. You know, that's one of the biggest things that Trump said. He was gonna build a wall. And I think that's really, really interesting for anybody who's actually in the Nostradamus. I mean, I guess it's possible that we're all just grasping at straws when it comes to this because we're all just so shocked by it. But you know what? One thing I've noticed, in times of great turmoil and change, people always look to Nostradamus and his teachings for, well, some kind of insight. So it's interesting that people are still doing that hundreds of years later. All we can do as a species is try to progress. But you know what? Sometimes it's just so cool to go back in time to a time that, you know, the very young boy, Johnny Mallard, that's trapped inside me is very excited to talk about because you know what? I love dinosaurs. I really do. I always wanted a pet dinosaur. When Jurassic World came out, I completely freaked when I seen the velociraptors being controlled. It was so much fun. But you know what? We all know it's not possible for dinosaurs to roam the earth anymore, unfortunately. But that is not going to stop good old Japan from having one of the coolest theme parks I've ever heard of. Not that it's really an original idea. No. Japan is set to build a complete robotic Jurassic Park. I mean, I'm totally going to Japan. Dino Alive will offer visitors the next best thing to real dinosaurs without the risk of being eaten. Described as half visual spectacle and half wacky performance piece, the idea of a robotic version of Jurassic Park is the brainchild of Japanese entrepreneur Kazuhara Kanemaru. During a presentation at an industry expo in Tokyo last week, Kanemaru impressed investors by introducing a robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex, which attempted to gobble up one of the actors on stage. Oh, I love that. If the park does go ahead, it will offer members of the public a chance to experience firsthand a realistic recreation of the prehistoric world using animatronics and human-operated robot dinosaurs. So cool. A demonstration of what the finished park might look like can be viewed in a video on YouTube. But you know what? Just for old time's sake, there's something I gotta do right now. Oh yeah. I want a dinosaur for Christmas. Well, luckily, we all may have a lot more years left to live, and we may get a chance to actually see Japan and its new Jurassic Park. But there's one woman who I'm telling you right now who's probably going to outlive all of us, and what if I told you she's 117 years old? She's the last person on the planet to see the 19th century. The oldest human being on Earth, Emma Murano, is the last person alive to have seen the 19th century. Born on November 29th, 1899, the Italian, who has now reached the grand old age of 117, is officially the oldest human being alive anywhere in the world and the only remaining person to have been born during the 1800s. The eldest of 8 children, Murano has remained independent for almost her entire life. She left her violent husband in 1938 following the death of her only son and lived on her own, supporting herself through jobs which included working in a factory producing sacks. Despite her advancing years, she is still sound of mind, though very hard of hearing, and has not left her apartment in Verbania, a town on Lake Maggiore in northern Italy, for 20 years. I eat 2 eggs a day, and that's it. And cookies, but I do not eat much because I have no teeth, she says. People come. I don't invite anybody, but they come all the time. From America, Switzerland, Austria, Turin, Milan. They come from all over to see me because, well, I'm very different. I'm very old. When asked before the big day if she'd been eating any birthday cake, however, she wasn't too keen. The last time I ate a little, but then I did not feel too good, she said. Well, bless your heart. My God, I can't even imagine how old I feel every day going to work. Can you imagine being 117? You know what the really awesome part of that is, though? The fact that she's had 117 Christmases. Holy man. Just think about that. How many pairs of slippers must this woman own? We got half-buried pyramids in the middle of the Antarctic. We got, the idea that you can't actually catch the cold by being out in the cold. We have Nostradamus maybe predicting Trump's victory in the U.S. election. We have Japan building its very own Jurassic Park, which is just so cool. I gotta go. I gotta go. Even after listening to that music, that's like on my bucket list of things to do now. And also we have a woman who saw 3 centuries. 1899 she was born, the last woman of that generation. Man, oh man. All these stories have been odd to Newfoundland. Alright guys, we're almost ready to jump in and get to our weird and wonderful oddities, Christmas themed I might add, but first we're going to hear from our old friend Laura Gilbert with a very special Christmas edition of the MUFON Minute. Take it away, Laura.
Thanks, John. Welcome to your MUFON Minute for December 2016. To celebrate this month's special guest, I wanted to pose the question, is Bigfoot actually an alien? In many cases, the Sasquatch and UFO phenomena are experienced separately, but there are a few instances where these two oddities overlap. There are various reports of strange lights and creatures, humanoids covered in white hair carrying glowing spheres of light, Creatures, upon being encountered with weapons, disappearing in the flash of a light. Are these simply hallucinations? A dimensional portal? A wormhole? A space-time vortex? Is the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs simply that Bigfoot knows how to access the exact same energetic conditions with his brain and without the use of technology? Is this why mysterious primates and spacecraft are seen in the same areas, and why both are able to suddenly vanish in thin air? There is certainly enough to warrant further investigations of such reports. Here are a few compelling cases I'd like to share with you. One tale describes a rancher in the late 1800s being led by local indigenous peoples to a cave. There, he was face to face with a large creature covered in long, shiny black hair with no neck, sitting cross-legged. He was told that 3 crazy bears had been cast out of a small moon that dropped from the sky. The moon had departed after dropping off its passengers. In 1973, a woman and her son awoke at 2:30 for a drink of water and noticed bizarre lights in an adjoining parking lot. She saw an inexplicable cone of light shaped like a huge umbrella, with a grayish ape-like creature with a large downward angled snout, no neck, and a sizable waist. Moving slowly, it entered into the light. Both of these disappeared within 5 minutes. In 1976, after a series of UFO sightings around British Columbia, several men and their children saw a hairy ape-like entity 6 to 7 feet tall roaming about a mountainside. They also found a small clump of hair that was sent to the RCMP. Laboratory analysis confirmed it was primate hair, but it could not be matched to any known species. To lighten things up a little bit, from the MUFON Minute, I'd like to present to you a poem from the Pookie Poetry blog, and it's entitled, I Want an Alien for Christmas. I want an alien for Christmas, declared the little girl, as she spoke to Father Christmas while pushing back her curls. I want one who's as tall as me, with skin green like a pear, and 17 eyes and wings to fly, and funny purple hair. I'd also like a yo-yo and some puzzles, please, but the one thing I want most of all is an alien Santa, please. Father Christmas gave a chuckle. A tall order, that's for sure. I'll see what I can do, though, promised Mr. Santa Claus. When Christmas came around that year, the little girl hardly slept. So excited had she been about her alien pet. When she woke up Christmas morning and ran downstairs to see if Santa Claus had visited and left gifts beneath the tree, she wasn't disappointed. There were 3 marked with her name. 1 small, 1 large, 1 in between, wrapped in paper just the same. She opened up the small first and found a yo-yo there, and the next one was a jigsaw of Rapunzel with long hair. She saved the biggest gift to last and thought she heard it breathe. It was rather large and heavy and required a hoe and a heave to pull it into the room so it could be unwrapped. I wonder what it is, she thought. Her excited fingers tapped a happy tune upon the gift. Imagine her surprise when the gift tapped back, then unwrapped itself before her very eyes. And standing there at 3 feet tall, with eyes a shade of gray, was her very own personal alien friend who'd come along to play. An alien, exclaimed the girl, stepping forwards to embrace him. Her parents exchanged worried looks, unsure that they should keep him. But the girl and the alien shared a look that said, we'll be best of friends. We'll talk, we'll laugh, we'll run about, and we'll have fun that never ends. On those crisp and clear holiday nights, don't forget to get out there with your cameras and binoculars. You could see something very special amongst the Christmas lights. If you do, don't forget to report it to www.mufon.com. For more information about MUFON in Newfoundland and Labrador, please be sure to check out the Newfoundland UFO Network on Facebook. Have a squatchy Christmas, John.
Oh, Laura, the pleasure's all mine, and Merry Christmas to you. I hope you enjoyed my choice of music, your very own favorite Christmas carol. I put a little instrumental in there just for you. Thank you so much for being a part of my show now. And heading into 2017, I hope we can keep this super awesome relationship up. Laura Gilbert, ladies and gentlemen, of the MUFON Minute. MUFON member. She's crazy about UFOs and, well, what can I say? Bigfoot as well, apparently. She knows a few things about the big guy, and we're almost getting ready to talk to Eric Altman. But first, I'm going to bring you guys your oddities.
Thank God. It's time for oddities.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Boy, that escalated quickly.
I want to believe.
Welcome to the desert of the real oddities.
All right. Christmas themed. You gotta have them Christmas themed, man. I mean, 'tis the season. Here's 10 strange, odd facts about Christmas that are actually very, very true. Number 1. Did you know December 25th was originally a pagan celebration? Nobody knows when Jesus of Nazareth was born, and nobody celebrated his birthday for hundreds of years. December 25th was co-opted from pagan rites connected with the winter solstice. This, of course, was connected with people who came over and kind of wanted to make those holidays Christian. So without freaking out the masses, they took their days where they used to celebrate and made them very Christian. They Christianized their own traditions. And, well, what can I say? That's how we got our December 25th as Jesus' birthday. Odd fact number 2. The nativity story resulted in several wars. In the first few centuries of the Christian era, controversy over whether or not Jesus was divine at birth created political and social unrest that frequently burst out into full-scale warfare. What can I say? Christmas brings out the best and the worst in all of us. Number 3, mistletoe kissing originated with fertility rites. I'm kind of blushing now because I used to kiss my mother-in-law all the time underneath those things. The hanging sprig is a very ancient symbol of virility, and therefore anybody standing beneath it is signaling that he or she is sexually available. Well, I did not realize it was sexually available. Come to think of it, I wonder if Steph would mind if I put a sprig of, the good stuff underneath every single door of the house. Hint, hint, I'm available. Odd fact number 5, Christmas is only recently a family holiday. Christmas was originally celebrated as an adult form of trick-or-treat, but with the treat consisting of booze and the threatened trick consisting of bodily harm or destruction of property. This sounds like my kind of Christmas. Odd fact number 6, We Wish You a Merry Christmas was originally a threat. Yeah, you better put your dukes up. You and your figgy pudding. The ever-popular song was originally sung loudly and repeatedly by crowds of rowdy lower-class servants demanding booze from their masters, or else. We won't go until we get some. Just think about that. We won't go until we get some, and then we'll shank you. Another odd fact about Christmas. Number 7, the Christmas tree is a manufactured tradition. Victorian intellectuals, like Clement Moore, invented the tradition as part of a social movement to consciously reform Christmas away from its tradition of raucous drinking. It's gone from a drink and be merry kind of deal to a more family-oriented one. Thank you so much, because I'd rather drink my drink and look at my tree at the same time. I love progress, don't you? Odd fact number 8, Scrooge does not celebrate with the Cratchits. While most cinema versions of A Christmas Carol show the reformed miser celebrating with his lower-class employee, in the book, Scrooge celebrates instead with his middle-class nephew, Fred. And that's something I can vouch for, because in the original Alistair Sim, they did indeed come to dinner at the end. Odd fact number 9, Christmas as a day off is a recent innovation. As late as 1850, December 25th was not a legal holiday in New England, so stores were open, businesses were open, and children were expected to attend school. Oh my God. Quick, open up your gifts so we can go back to school. Yeesh. I'm glad things have changed. Another odd fact, and this is something that's just hilarious, so I saved this one for the end. I thought you guys would like this. The 12 Days of Christmas is one of my favorite Christmas carols. I love it, and I really think that it's extravagant. okay? But how extravagant? What if I told you that 12 Days of Christmas costs about $1.3 million to pull off? Do you have $1.3 million? You could really impress the person you love. The big challenge is getting the lords to leap in unison, if you ask me. I figure about 100,000 per lord with an extra 1,000K to cover the birds, rings, milkmaids, and so forth. Holy crap, this adds up to $1.3 million. There you go, guys. There's your oddities for this wonderful Christmas season. Okay, the time to bring Eric Altman is just about here. We're going to do that now in a few minutes. Don't you dare go away.
The Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal podcast does not accept donations. In lieu of this, the Stella Burry Foundation is a registered charity established in 2005 to secure financial support for the work of Stella's Circle. Learn more and please give generously at stellaburry.ca. And now, back to the show. The following podcast is brought to you by Newfie EVP, Talking with the Dead in Newfoundland. Jump on Amazon.ca today and get your free sample of the best-selling ebook in Unexplained Mysteries.
And welcome back to the show. Tonight is no stranger on my show. That's right. For the second year in a row, I get to bring back an old friend. Somebody who is quite familiar with the big guy, the hairy guy, the Sasquatch, the Yeti, the mountain man. He's got so many names, but there's only one name I ever really associated with Bigfoot because, well, what can I say? I'm a big fan of edgy radio. I'm even a fan of Beyond the Edge radio. Ladies and gentlemen, here to speak about, well, Bigfoot. Mr. Eric Altman has joined me tonight here on the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal podcast. How you doing tonight, Eric?
Hey, bud. How are you?
I'm doing great since last year. I hope this year's finding you well.
As well as can be.
Lots of big changes over in the States this year.
Oh, yeah. It's been an interesting year, to say the least.
I gotta say, it's been interesting, too, to hear the reactions about not just so much about, President Trump, but to hear more about all these celebrity and singers' deaths and stuff like that. 2016 has not been very kind to, shall we say, the entertainment industry. But, I'm glad I can still turn on Beyond the Edge Radio and listen to you every Sunday night. Am I correct?
Yeah, we're still on the air. It's our 10th year, celebrating our 10th year on the air now. We're in our 10th season. And, yeah, we're still alive and kicking, so we haven't killed over in 2016 yet.
No, it will not be the Leonard Cohen of Bigfoot research either. Eric, of course, is no slouch. He's been featured on different shows, documentaries, and just has a love affair with the Sasquatch. What can I say? He's a mountain man himself, I guess you could say. Eric, tell me a little bit about what's been going on 2016 for you, Bigfoot-wise.
It's actually been a really slow year, to be honest with you. We've had a couple of reports in Pennsylvania and on the East Coast. Nothing real exciting as far as stuff going on here in the East Coast. Around the country, the reports are coming in. A lot of people are filing reports. There's new stuff on YouTube. There's new stuff reported in the media. A lot of it's unfortunately, a lot of it is either hoaxed material, a lot of it's misidentifications, but the media is eating it up and still putting it out there as if it's, Bigfoot stuff, but nothing new. It's the same old as far as evidence or proof that Bigfoot's real, but, hey, that's par for the course.
And, I never want to, kind of stick one person in only one category. Eric, I know you're into all realms of the paranormal with your own radio show. And how's the show been going this year?
The show's going good. We've had a wide diversity of guests on, as we always do. And we've had some great topics this year, great discussions. We're chugging right along. Marie and I are doing great. And we've had a great season so far. We're wrapping the show up in 2 weeks for the year. I'm going to take a Christmas break and be back in 2017 to start all over again.
There you go. And I love saying start all over again because new beginnings, right? Let's hope 2017 is better to us all.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Eric, it's interesting because so many people know you as the Bigfoot guy. We get labeled as that. I'm into paranormal investigation myself, mainly EVP, and most people label me as, the ghost guy. But reality is we all have an interest in many different, facets of the paranormal. When I think of you, though, I can't help but think of Yeti and Bigfoot and stuff, and the word Pennsylvania. And I got so many great friends who've been on my show as well. From Pennsylvania. What the heck is going on over there? Why does this seem like it's such a popular place for Bigfoot and among just one thing. Bigfoot is only one thing that goes on. There's a lot of hauntings as well. What do you think it is about Pennsylvania that's so special?
We're all just weird.
Great answer.
It's true. We're all just strange. I think it's something in the water. You're right. Pennsylvania is a very unusual state when it comes to strange and unusual phenomenon. We don't just have Bigfoot sightings, and there is an abundance of Bigfoot sightings. People don't necessarily associate Bigfoot with Pennsylvania, but there is quite a number of Bigfoot reports that go way, way back to the early 1800s. But there's the ghostly phenomenon that goes back hundreds of years. UFO sightings, they're a commonplace phenomenon. At one time, Pennsylvania was considered one of the top 5 states in the United States with UFO reports, according to MUFON. There's all kinds of strange activities. There's strange locations. We've got Gravity Hill in Pennsylvania. There's all kinds of strange cryptid creatures being seen and reported. There's always something strange and unusual going on here and something fun to do and check out. It's just a really bizarre place.
For me, there has to be a reason why this place seems like it's an epicenter for activity. I've heard people talk about ley lines. Is there any running through Pennsylvania?
I'm sure there is. To be honest with you, I've never really looked to see if there were. I know from the research I've done into the Bigfoot phenomenon, we find a lot of the reports, as strange as it sounds, seem to take place around power sources or waterways or something that has to do with that can be able to conduct electricity, whether it be like a electrical, what do they call them, electrical towers or lines, waterways, gas well lines, anything that seems to have to do with natural resources. And maybe that's something to do with the paranormal phenomenon as well.
Absolutely. We've tied it together many, many times. It seems like hauntings take place not only in places of great tragedy. Like the first one that pops in my head is obviously Gettysburg. Like I just think when I think of haunting, like quintessential hauntings with many documented experiences by so many people and repeatable data, I think of Gettysburg always. And it seems like tragedy is always linked to these things, but could it be something, really water? I think water would be a cause, well, maybe not so much as a cause, but maybe a necessity for a haunting. Think about it. If we are like made up mostly of water, if there is a part of us that survives when we die, wouldn't it not seek out water to survive in some capacity? It would make sense, right?
Yeah, well, water is a great, it really helps electricity pass through it. So maybe it has something to do with energy and water. Water containing energy, holding energy. It would make sense for hauntings and as well as for Bigfoot. If Bigfoot is a being of energy, it's possible.
Yeah, and it would make sense because, here we are. We still haven't been able to capture a ghost in a bottle yet. I'm sorry, guys, but, that Ghostbusters movie isn't real. It actually isn't how it's done. We still haven't caught a ghost, shall we say, in a bottle yet, nor have we managed to capture a Bigfoot. Do you think there might be some kind of connection there? Do you think that this creature, this Sasquatch, this Bigfoot, do you think it might be possible that this thing isn't really part of our realm and it just kind of shows up from time to time?
Well, that's one of the theories that people in the field talk about. They think that maybe Bigfoot isn't really necessarily a terrestrial being from Earth. They might be interdimensional or perhaps extraterrestrial being. There are theories thrown about, and I don't know if I necessarily prescribe to that because there's no proof that it is able to transfer between dimensions or it does come from another planet or another universe. We don't know. We don't have the technology to really say that's what it does, that people guess. And I think mainly because we don't have any physical evidence to prove the animal exists. A lot of it's hypothesis, a lot of it's it's guesswork. It's people just making assumptions, and they're trying to solve a mystery with another mystery. They don't know, so they're grasping at straws. And I think it's a little foolish to do that, but who knows? At this point, everybody's just trying to find an answer.
I hate the idea, but I also love the idea of someday somebody finally getting a Bigfoot, because you know what? Suddenly the mystery is solved and science will step in, and then suddenly we're just people people won't think we're crazy anymore, which is great. But unfortunately, the scientist, the lab coach, so to speak, will step in there and our job will be done. But you know what? We're not going to want to retire just yet. Talk to me a little tiny bit about some of the things you got coming up this year, my friend. We mentioned a few minutes ago to each other off the air. You're scheduled to speak at Penhurst Paracon number 3.
Yeah, Bob Christopher, Dave Giuliano, they're helping to organize another event at Penhurst this year in June. And they've asked me to come back up and speak again. And it's going to be one of the very few rare appearances where I'm going to be lecturing in 2017. So I agreed to come back up and talk again at Penhurst this year. That'll be the first weekend in June. And looking forward to coming back to that. So that was a fun event last year. He had a lot of people come out to that event. It was sold out like the first couple of weeks they advertised the event. So I think they're going to be advertising tickets soon. So it should sell out pretty quick.
Hear that out there, guys? Anybody in Pennsylvania, get out there. Let's see you at Penhurst. That'd be awesome. And also Eric got the 2017 Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. And it seemed like only yesterday you've already pulled one of these off. Am I correct? Seemed like only a little while ago, maybe like within the last few months.
Yeah, that was in May. We did our first Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure in May. And it was surprisingly a big success. Usually I've done these little public camping outings where we get maybe 25 or 30 people to come out and attend. And this one we had over 250 people come out for the event. And it was pretty successful. We raised over $3,000 for the charities that we had on board with us. And people loved it. It was very well received. People wanted another one. So I went to a couple of the other co-sponsors and organizers and said, hey, let's try to do it again, and maybe do a couple more days instead of just one day. Let's do 2. Let's have some more movies. Let's have some more speakers, add some more vendors, kick it up a notch and see what we come up with. So we're going to do it again this year in 2017. In May, the first weekend in May, 5th, 6th, and 7th, same location, since it's such a beautiful campground, modern, very wide open, a lot of space for us, great pavilion, great area for us to have it at, and it's centrally located in southwestern Pennsylvania, right in the heart of where all the sightings have been recently in the last few years. A lot of activity, and it's a great place to take people out and show them where we do our research, give them a taste of what it's like to do research, put them out in the woods so they can get a feel of what it's like to be out there looking and doing what we do as researchers. So it gives them the chance to do that. They get to hear researchers who've been doing it, get to meet other eyewitnesses and hear their stories and share their experiences. And get to come out and learn something and have fun. Plus, the whole time we're raising money for 3 charities in the area, 2 animal shelters, and a Make-A-Wish Foundation for adults, and hopefully raise some money for them and have a good time doing it.
Eric, I think that's wonderful. What a great way to give back to your community, doing something you love to do. And, I do something similar every year myself. I won't get into the details of it, but, I must say that there is a part of it for me too. I get a lot out of it as well. I feel great when I do those charity events and give people that experience. Just even for 1 second, they think there might be something out there that's more than meets the eye. You know what I mean? And I think that's really, really special. Speaking of more than meets the eye, you mentioned that there's been a few sightings and some things going on this year in that area, or she said over the last few years. Talk to me a little tiny bit of what's going on over there.
Well, as I mentioned, we've had a couple of reports that I've investigated personally. Unfortunately, for the most part of the year, I've been laid up with some health issues. I've been in the hospital this fall, so I haven't had a chance to do much research. But earlier this spring and into early summer, we got a couple of reports from the Fayette County area where we're holding our camping adventure again. We had one in May where it was a pretty interesting report. It happened on, I believe, May the 10th. There was a couple driving home late one night, probably about 11:30 at night. It was raining outside. They were coming down a back mountain road. And with rainy conditions at night, it's very difficult to see, so they were driving pretty slowly. Ahead of them, as they were driving down this back mountain road, ahead of them they witnessed a large animal come down off the embankment on their left. And at first they thought it was a bear because it was a large animal, but they couldn't see far enough ahead to tell exactly what it was. They were driving slow enough that they didn't have to really brake. They just slowed down a little more. They watched the animal cross the road very slowly and lumber off the road down an embankment on the right and disappear into the tree line. And they weren't sure exactly what it was, so they came to a complete stop, dug around in the glove box for a flashlight and found one, and began to shine the flashlight down the embankment on the right to see if they could tell what kind of animal it was, because they were just assuming it was a bear or large deer. And as they were looking down the embankment on the right, they caught something in the peripheral on the left coming down the embankment on the left side of the road. A second animal came down off the embankment on the road, and this one was much closer to the car, probably about 25 to 50 feet. And whatever it was walked out in the middle of the road and stopped. And that's when they turned their attention from the right embankment to the center of the roadway, and they saw this thing standing there on two legs. And it was just standing there in the middle of the road about 25 to 50 feet in front of the car, just staring at them. And they could tell it was not a bear. It was up on two legs, completely covered with hair, arms hanging down below the knees, and it was staring back at them. And they had no idea what this thing was. Their first reaction was to back away from the animal, which they began to do. The animal remained standing there looking at them. They were looking at it as they backed away. This animal never moved. They figured, well, maybe if we drive towards it, that'll scare it. It'll take off down the hill and disappear. They began to drive towards the animal. The animal still didn't move. It stood its ground, and they eventually hit it with their car. They bumped it with their bumper, and they weren't going very fast. They hit it enough they thought would at least get it to move, and it didn't. It stood there. It leaned down, put its hands on the hood of the car, and looked down into the windshield at the couple. The couple looked back at it. The stare-off went on for a few seconds, and finally the creature stood up, turned, and did eventually walk off the roadway to the embankment on the right, down the hillside, and disappeared from sight. The couple freaked out. They drove home, got on the internet, found a local researcher who lived pretty close to them, contacted him. He was up there the next day, met with them at the sighting location, took their report, looked for any signs of tracks or evidence, couldn't find anything, couldn't find any damage to the hood of the car, any sign of the creature being there, because of course it was raining and anything that would have been left was washed away. They couldn't find any tracks. We got wind of the report through Stan Gordon, a mutual researcher in the area who had heard from this local guy. We contacted the local guy. He refused to give us the name of the witnesses or the exact location. And from the report that he sent out, we were able to deduce where the sighting actually took place. We sent a team up. We investigated the area as thoroughly as we could, and we couldn't find any evidence to show that there was one, let alone two creatures across the road. We did find some large game trails, but we find no evidence to support the story. We were not able to talk with the witnesses, but it was a very compelling story nonetheless, and we had to leave it at that because the witness who got the report, or the researcher who got the report from the two witnesses, refused to share any information with anybody outside of, the witnesses and himself.
Gotcha. Well, that was awesome. I could sit back and listen to that kind of stuff all day long. That's really, really interesting, Eric. And it's so great to hear too. You still got that level head about you, It's missing. It's missing with a lot of people out there who are into this. Everything's a Bigfoot. And I know that your word is a lot more credible than a lot of other people's, even people I know personally, who are hopefully listening to this show right now and listening to an amazing report. Very, very interesting stuff. You just told me an amazing story, and the idea that this could just be a story, it just never crosses my mind, because I know that these people who are reporting these things truly believe they've seen something. But has Eric Altman himself ever had an experience with the big guy, so to speak?
I can't answer that saying I have. I've had multiple encounters in the forest with things that I can't say was or wasn't a Bigfoot. And what I mean by that is I've been out for, 2017 will mark 20 years of me going out in the field investigating. I've heard things in the woods that I can't explain. I consider myself fairly familiar with wildlife, sounds, sign, seeing wildlife, being out there as long as I have. I would consider myself fairly knowledgeable, but I don't know everything. some of the things I've heard in the woods, I scratch my head and I've not been able to find on the internet or identify positively or been able to track down what the source was. So some of the sounds I've heard I can't identify. I don't know what they were. Some of the things I've seen in the ground, possible tracks, they were possible tracks. I never saw the animal make the track or leave the footprint or whatever it was, so I can't say what that was. I've seen things very quickly moving through the forest, just a glimpse of something. I can't tell you what it was. I can't tell you if it was a deer or bear or maybe even a Sasquatch. I didn't get a good enough look at it. I've had too many encounters like that over the years. I call them possible encounters because they were. It was possibly a Bigfoot. I don't know. It possibly wasn't a Bigfoot. I can't honestly say. But I've had a lot of those types of encounters. I've never had a conclusive sighting where I can sit here and tell you, yeah, I've seen one. Or yes, I've heard one, or yes, I've definitely found Bigfoot tracks. Some of the tracks that I've found that have corroborated a sighting, where a sighting has taken place, I go investigate and find what are possible tracks at that location. In my mind, make me think, yeah, they very well could be Bigfoot tracks. They're right where this witness says he saw something, and they're in that vicinity, and they're the same, what should be the same size of a Bigfoot track, and they're out of the parameters of a normal deer track or bear track. They're a little large for a human track. So those are situations where I would have to say it's a good possibility that those were Bigfoot tracks. But like I said, I can't answer yes, I've had one, and I can't say no, I haven't. I don't know.
Amazing. Eric, it makes me feel like you're so much more credible being able to say, I don't know. I wish I had $1 for every time I had to say, I don't know.
Well, I'm honest. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh my God, every time I go out, I hear a Bigfoot. And that's, unfortunately, people today don't use good common sense. They want so bad to experience things, and they want to believe everything they experience. I shouldn't say everybody, but a good majority of people want so badly, and it happens in the paranormal field, it happens in the UFO field. People want to experience things. They want so badly to believe what they experience is what they want. And they forget that there's logical answers and there's rational answers that can explain what they experienced. Instead of trying to find those rational, logical answers, they just throw that square peg into that circles. They force it in there. It's got to be a ghost. It can't be anything else. And a lot of people anymore don't look for the logical, honest answer to stuff. It has to be that, what they want it to be. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have lost objectivity and lost, being honest.
Gotcha. Well, I'm honestly still very interested in your own experiences, Eric. And you say it was 20 years now. In 2017, you've been a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's so many years, man. That's amazing. Any plans to write books or anything about all this craziness?
No.
No?
I've started writing books, started writing a book, I should say, years ago. And I must have ADD or ADHD or something like that, because I start to write and I'll get sidetracked and I'll get bored with what I'm doing and go on to something else. And I'm a perfectionist when it comes to things that I do, or at least try to be, because I want it to be perfect. And what I've written so far, I go back and rewrite it, and I read it and I rewrite it, and I read it and rewrite it, and I'm like, oh, this isn't right. This is missing something, or I'm not happy with this chapter. So I write for a little while and I get bored with it and I put it aside, and I read it and I rewrite it, and it's never going to get done. So unfortunately, I'll be like 80 and I'll be like on my deathbed when I think I'll finish that book now.
It'll be 4 pages long and it'll be full of scribbles. Well, you've left quite the legacy though, my friend. 10 years at Beyond the Edge Radio, and people can go back and listen to all those shows from many years ago. Am I correct?
Yeah, there's archives out there somewhere. I've lost track. I know there's stuff on iTunes. There's like 135 shows on iTunes.
Wow.
The last couple of years. There's Podbean, there's Podomatic, there's, Blueberry Podcast. There's so many different sources where people can find the shows. Planet Paranormal. I can't even remember some of the sources we have shows out there. They're floating around out there. There's well over 400 shows out there.
Gotcha. Eric, our time is getting actually kind of short. I seem every time we talk, time goes really, really fast. We must be in one of those warp zones we keep talking about. Eric, before I let you go on, a little bit of advice to anybody out there who might have, the passion you got, the chase after Bigfoot. The wannabe cryptozoologists out there, the people who want to be field investigators, the paranormal enthusiasts out there. Have you got any advice for them when they go out in the field and just try to get their own answers?
Yeah, don't. Don't go out and look.
Don't go out and look? Really?
Yeah, really. And the reason I say that is not to discourage people from going to look, because I encourage people to go out there and seek answers. But there's so many people that go out there thinking they're going to find Bigfoot behind every bush, and they're going to find Bigfoot their first time out, that they start finding Bigfoot every time they go out, and it's not Bigfoot evidence. And unfortunately, it's gotten so bad, especially the last couple of years. I see pictures on Facebook and I see videos on YouTube of literally hundreds and thousands of videos and pictures of people wanting to believe the evidence they have is Bigfoot, and it's really not. And they're fooling themselves, and they're fooling their friends, and let's face it, bud, if Bigfoot is in every picture they're putting out there and every video that's out there, we'd have proof that this thing was real.
True.
We'd have a body, we'd have undeniable proof, but 90 to 95% of the evidence people are putting out there is their own wishful thinking that Bigfoot's real. And I don't want to discourage people from going out there to research. I encourage people to seek the truth. But if you're going to do it objectively. And remember, not everything you capture on film or audio or video is Bigfoot evidence.
Here's one for you. Here's one for you, Eric. How about for every hour of field investigating, you had your mandatory 24 hours of paper research? How's that sound?
That's perfect.
We'll give them a guideline for Christmas this year.
Be very critical of what you do. Be very skeptical of your own research, because if you're not, if you don't put a critical eye to what you do and scrutinize every little bit of research that you do, then you're going to believe everything out there is what you want it to be, and that's not the case.
There you go, guys. Some very sound advice. Stay the hell out of the woods unless you know what's really in there first. And maybe then you might be shall we say, more ready to go and hunt yourself a Yeti. Eric from the Odd Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast, thank you so much for once again making my Squatchmas just so much more hairy. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to listening to you on Sunday.
My pleasure, bud. Thanks for asking me on. It's good to talk to you again, and have a Merry Squatchmas.
Same to you.
Attention all Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn radio listeners. The Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast brings you the best in East Coast esoterica on the first of every month. Together, we can keep it growing by sharing the show on social media, subscribing to the show wherever you may be listening to it from, and by leaving feedback about your favorite episodes. John certainly needs a friend like you to help make his dreams come true, minus the alien abduction dreams. That is not cool at all. The Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast. Always available, always free, always odd.
And welcome back to the Odd Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast. I'll be honest with you. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like subject-focused ones because, well, they kind of mirror my mood. Some days I'm in the mood to hear about ghosts. Some day I'm in the mood to hear about, witches. Maybe mummies. Maybe vampires. Maybe sometimes I'm in the mood to hear about a SasWhat? Two men who are behind this hairy myth so wholeheartedly, I'm beginning to think they might be half Squatch, are actually gracing my podcast tonight. From the show SasWhat, a podcast about Bigfoot, Seth Breedlove and Matzke are on the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast. Guys, congratulations on 100 episodes.
Oh, thanks. Wow. Thanks a lot. What an intro. Yeah.
Yeah, I put some effort into this.
Sometimes I want to hear about Wookiees. Sometimes I want to hear about Mark.
Really?
Yeah.
You're one of maybe 3 people that would.
This is how I keep up with your life through the podcast.
It is. It's very unique.
Yeah.
A special relationship.
I think it's a good show of friendship. How many times you don't edit each other. So it's a good going. Guys, I really hope you're planning on celebrating 100 episodes though. It's a really big accomplishment and it should be celebrated. I mean, I look at mine, I'm nowhere near 100 yet, but I'll say, wow, what a milestone. How does it feel like looking back in the rearview mirror right now at that first show you guys put together?
Take it, Mark.
Me? Well, it's funny because we never at any time kind of sat down and planned out how we were going to do this. It really was far more informal than that. Because, truthfully, SasWhat was Seth by himself first for, 2 episodes?
Yeah,
and then you had a 2-parter with Sean Forker. And then it was sometime after that I invested in my microphone and we got together on the first recordings. I just remember it being really exciting personally because like radio and recording is something I've always been interested in doing. So this was really brand new to me, and Seth really helped me in every way, walked me through the process, and then to get on there and talk about Bigfoot, which is something that I've always been intensely interested in as long as I can remember, but never really had a huge group of people to talk about it with. Then I had somebody to talk about it with, which is really cool. And it's really only after the fact that we started to realize that other people were listening to the two of us talk. And that still is something I'm not entirely used to. Like, we'll be at certain events and so forth, and people will say, oh, we know people who are SasWhat fans, and it's just, it's hard. It doesn't hardly register with me because I don't know, it's not something I feel like we've ever recorded a show thinking people are really going to dig this. It's always just been me and Seth talking to each other about stuff that we've done or just gathering cases and talking about them. So it's just interesting. 100 episodes have gone relatively fast, in my opinion, because for a while there we were really weekly cranking them out.
Well, I mean, there was a point where I swear we were putting out more than 4 or 5 a month. I mean, we were putting out like 6 episodes a month and 7 episodes a month. At one point, I considered doing 2 episodes a week, and I mean, early on, it was really fun because we could just sit down and record episodes, and Mark and I would record like 2-3 episodes at a time usually, right? When it was a half-hour show, we would record 4 shows in one setting, and so we, there was early on, and then, even into, I guess, anytime we can sit down and talk about like a specific topic, like we have a topic planned out in advance, we can do research and stuff. Those were my favorite episodes to kind of record, although I do like the topical episode, or not topical, but the conversational episodes where it's just kind of us talking are easiest to record, so probably there's less stress with those. But I really enjoyed the episodes where we would just sit down and go over a topic. I really thought, that was a lot of fun for me, and honestly, a lot of that stuff paid off later, or I was drawing on research I'd already done. And a lot of this stuff is stuff Mark and I already have an interest in, like if we're going to talk about the West Virginia monsters or Pennsylvania monsters or whatever, like sit down with Shannon LeGros and talk about white Bigfoot, reports and stuff like that. These are all things that we're already into. So it's shocking, I think, for some people, but like this whole subject is really like we were into this before SasWhat, gained a decent-sized audience, and before Small Town Monsters came along and all that stuff, Mark and I were just originally just talking to each other. I mean, I think there was a point where I texted you excitedly that one of our episodes had hit like a couple hundred listeners. So, so it's crazy what happened from there. And, Mark and I have gone to freaking Arkansas together. So, it's been a crazy, whirlwind friendship. We've only known each other for 2-3 years? It's not long. Like, Mark and I have not known each other long. It's like it's been a really chaotic and fun 2-3 years. What is it, 3 years? 3 years.
Not quite, yeah. Well, is it 3? I think it's 2, and it's like in the third year. It's in its third year.
3-year anniversary is coming up. So looking back on it, it's just I started the show just planning on it being me talking into a microphone, and then it became, and then I met Mark and it became something else, and I liked what it became much more. And Mark is every bit as important to the show, at this point more important to the show because he's going to continue it. So yeah, it's been a crazy 2 years and 100 episodes and cool, fun stuff. This is the second podcast I've done that hit over 100 episodes, although I'm leaving at 100, so I'm proud of that too.
I'm glad I caught you right on the way out the door.
Yeah.
I really do, because I think that milestone should be celebrated. And who knows, I have a strange feeling that you might be back for a visit down the road, though. I don't think you're completely done with SasWhat. I can hear you maybe creeping in through the back door someday and kind of saying, hey, what's up?
Yeah, well, I'm going to still be editing the show and posting the show, so I'll never be completely gone, but yeah, it's bittersweet in a way, but it's also kind of cool. The coolest thing that's happened, I don't know if it's the coolest thing that's happened to Mark, although I think he's happy with it, but, the coolest thing that's happened for me with Mark is that he moved to a relatively short distance away from me. And before, he was living, 2 hours away, so we never saw each other. We saw each other maybe in 2015, I swear we only saw each other 3 or 4 times. But this year we've got to hang out, and so that's been cool for me too. So just even though I'm leaving the show, I'm still going to have, regular conversations with Mark. And Mark, I'm hoping to really pull him into the Small Town Monsters world in 2017.
Seth, I think it speaks volumes to why you guys do what you do. That you can walk away with your head held high and have that peace about you, because so many people get into podcasting for really the wrong reasons. They want the riches and the fame, which, if it does happen, is great. But at the end of the day, you gotta kind of love what you do. And when you walk away, and I just hear it in your voice right now, there's absolutely no ego about this with you at all. When you walk away, you're walking to say, you know what, this is Mark's now. See ya. There's no grand hurrah, nothing like that. So I think it speaks volumes about where your heart is with this, and that's with the big guy. Not you, Mark. I'm talking about Bigfoot, right? Talk to me a little bit about this awesome year you guys had. That there's a lot of highlights, and I just gotta say, what are some of the highlights from your show this year? I kind of want to coax some of my listeners, because my fan base may be small, but they're very dedicated, and they love high quality podcasts, especially ones with 2 hosts who don't talk over each other constantly. Yes, I notice, and I thank you for that. But tell me a little tiny bit of some of the highlights of your show this year, because it was a big year for you guys.
Over the past year or lifetime? You said year, right?
Yeah,
for me, it was the highlight of the entire year was Mark and I going to Falk, which wasn't necessarily a SasWhat trip. We didn't even record an episode down there, but we've talked about it multiple times on the show, and getting to be down there with Mark, and then Andy, seeing Andy kind of experience the whole filmmaking process and all that stuff. That was huge for me. Having George Nori on the show was cool. Let me think. What else? Man, Mark, what all did we do this year?
I would also, I second both of those completely. Talking to Lauren Coleman for me was huge because of the impact that he's had on my interest in this subject in general, and just all paranormal and cryptozoological subjects. I mean, he's the dean as far as I'm concerned. And to be able to have an in-depth, hour-long conversation with him and have it be, have it come across that he is highly supportive of the show and of Small Town Monsters especially was, a thrill of a lifetime, quite honestly. And the same with George Norrie. I mean, that was that was a very surreal experience for me because, I've been all in on Coast to Coast for years and been a Coast insider for like 5 years and, pay the 15 cents a day so I can listen to that show. And so to be, really talking to him, knowing the demands that are put on his time and the fact that he took time just to talk to a couple podcasters was just, it's an extremely unique situation. And yeah, I mean, other stuff that we've done this year, oh gosh, I think Minerva Monster Day was huge. And again, it's not like we had time to record a show in and around that experience, but that was, completely unique situation.
That was almost like a SasWhat episode brought to life as a festival, though, because Mark was hosting the event, so Mark would MC, he'd introduce our speakers and movies and all that stuff, and then I was helping run things off to the side, and we'd both be up on the stage a couple times talking. So that was kind of surreal to see that, take place. I have to say though, my favorite Lauren Coleman experience from the year was the Enfield Horror episode where we actually just called him on the phone. Warren and talked and we got him to talk about Enfield because he had actually investigated the Enfield case back in the day, and I thought that episode was a blast to record. I think it's called that's Bizarre Creature Encounters or something like that. It's like a weird Bigfoot encounters.
Yep, bizarre Bigfoot cases. Yeah, featuring a guest appearance by Lauren Coleman. Yeah,
I have to keep Coleman in mind. I only do one Bigfoot show a year, but man, oh man, I might be able to convince him over the next year to maybe come on next Christmas. Here's to 2017. Let's hope he stays healthy and everything goes good for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, let's talk a little tiny bit about the subject at hand. We talked enough about us. That's enough about us. Let's talk about what we love. Let's talk about the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, the big guy, the skunk ape. What the heck is it? In your own individual opinions, what is a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot? What is this thing?
Oh, that's a huge question.
I know. That's why I saved it for mid-show.
Yeah, I mean, Bigfoot is, it's like you can talk about this in two very specific ways, probably more than that really, but I could get all introspective and talk about how it's my life's work right now. But I think, if we're just talking what our personal opinion is on the origin of Bigfoot and where what kind of animal, or is it a human, or whatever. My personal opinion of it if it exists, which I'm still not 100% on, but if it exists, I believe it's some sort of ape, like an undiscovered ape roaming North America that knows to avoid humanity and keeps to itself and keeps to I think the line in Boggy Creek keeps to the undiscovered areas. So that's kind of my personal opinion. I don't see any evidence out there of tool usage and riding horses and building fires and stuff like that with these things. So I personally think if they're anything, if they exist, it's an undiscovered ape, or it's some sort of convict alien. They drop them off from a spaceship onto Earth, and they're just surviving in the woods. This is the prison planet.
It wouldn't be a paranormal podcast unless you told me what planet.
There you go.
We gotta go all the way woo, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
I have to say, I'll be completely candid. My thoughts on that are always shifting. I really am not settled on any one idea right now, although I was thinking about it earlier today because I thought you might ask something like that. And I guess right now I'm sort of in a place where I'm thinking more in terms of more human than ape, I guess. I guess I've been doing a lot of reading about the really old Pacific Northwest stories that have to do with the Sasquatch as maybe a relic tribe or a group of people that got separated or were never part of civilization. And there's something about that idea that appeals to me. Not that I think, that's got to be the one explanation for the whole phenomenon. I think that's probably naive, but I'm really interested in that idea of exploring that somehow. Maybe this is just some people who adapted really readily to their surroundings in a way that civilized folks today just aren't. And I that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm open to all kinds of consideration. And that's one of the hallmarks, I think, of our show, is that we never pushed one agenda. I think we were both pretty open about the fact that we have no answers. We're open to speculation, and we'll kind of respectfully deal with just about anybody's opinion. But the bottom line is nobody knows what it is, or we wouldn't really be talking about it like we are. It's such a endless mystery that it's just invites all of these different interpretations. It's probably easier in a way to talk about what you think Sasquatch isn't. And I guess in that regard, the thing that I have a hard time with are some of the sociological explanations of Bigfoot, like he's a projected unconscious vision of like a prehistoric man or something like that, or the woodland creature we would all like to be. I mean, that's a very prosaic explanation, and I think I understand why people put that forward, but there's no explanatory power to that for me at all. And I just don't jive with that. But it's just fascinating. What are your thoughts, if I can ask a question of the questioner?
My thoughts? Yeah. I have absolutely no idea. To be honest, it's so hard. Where I'm to is not, shall we say, a Squatch area. There are no Bigfoot researching teams up this way, nothing like that going on. So very rarely is he even discussed. It's a very Irish place, this Newfoundland I live in, and it's all about the ghosts and the ghoulies this way. But what I will say is this: I would like to think that the fact that there isn't a body is the telltale sign that this thing isn't from here. A lot of people will jump away and say right away, hey, this thing can't be real. Well, no. We see things that are supposedly not real all the time. We don't even know what gravity is. And to be quite honest with you, when we actually talk about a missing link, there's thousands of missing links. So to me, there's always going to be a possibility that there's something out there. Is it actually a physical being is where my brain is? Could this thing be a dimensional thing? Could we be seeing a ghost? Is one of the things I think, because it all has the telltale signs. Very rarely do we see, shall we say, the feet that are making those prints, or hear them very rarely, but sometimes they're there. It's strange. It kind of reminds me of something, hearing footsteps during one of my ghost hunts. We never ever see the feet making those footsteps, but yet we have it on recorder. So there's something going on there. Maybe this stuff is going on somewhere else and it just bleeds through to our reality. That's my thought. But hey, that's just where my brain's to. We wanted to go all the way woo-woo. We're there now. Okay. Guys, I'd like to think that, over the last 3 years, you guys have been talking a whole lot, and you've been talking to some of the most knowledgeable people on the subject. You've come across people, even Eric Altman, who's on earlier in the show today. You're friends with this guy. You've talked to many people on the subject. And I won't use the word evidence. I'll use the word data, just because I respect what you guys do. What is the most compelling piece of data you guys have come across in your travels that would lend to the idea that this thing is real?
Oh, wow. I don't think any of the existing evidence or data, as far as any of that stuff, any of the actual physical trace evidence that's left behind is going to win anyone over. It's not going to win me over. The footprints and all this. I think that stuff's fascinating. So for me, I'm left with the stories being what kind of keeps me involved and thinking there might be something to this. You know, I talked when we make these movies, I usually am talking to someone in those cases that will, at least one person per project, where I think, oh, there's got to be some kernel of truth in there. So, if I'm narrowing it down to one particular story, I love the Caton story from Minerva. I think there's so many people that back that story up, and I got to believe there's something to that. So for me, I'm really just left with the stories. I think the eyewitness testimony is so fascinating, and there's that, everyone trumpets it and echoes that line about, if even one of these stories, when you got thousands of stories, if even one of them is true, then there's a Bigfoot. So, and I kind of agree with that. I mean, it's hokey, and I just read an article by my buddy Adam yesterday that kind of refutes that, but I still think there's something to that.
Gotcha. I wish I had $1 for every time we said the word field today. We talked about this field. And you mentioned somebody already, but who do you guys look up to in the field of Bigfoot research?
Wow. Well, the aforementioned Loren Coleman, for sure.
We'll make sure he gets a shout out on our show. Don't worry. He'll be in the show notes. I'll link his site and stuff just for him.
Yeah. Bigfoot researchers, I think that I really respect, would also include Stan Gordon, who does stuff in southwest Pennsylvania especially, and has written a number of books. Probably his most famous work is called Silent Invasion, about a very weird flap of reports in the mid-'70s all along the Chestnut Ridge in Pennsylvania. And he's a very sober, very detail-oriented researcher, and the reason I guess I have such respect for him is that he doesn't, to my knowledge anyway, I mean, he doesn't censor the data that he receives. He just reports what comes in, as mundane or as weird as it may be, and he just lets it stand. And he's not really big on trying to formulate any theories either. He's just saying, we get these calls, we go investigate, this is what we're told, and, you be the judge. And I guess that's an approach that sort of informed the way that I look at this subject too.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I gotta go, if we're talking about, he's passed away, but John Green, and I know Mark shares my sentiments about John Green. In fact, Mark's probably stronger because he's been acquainted with him longer, but John Green was I'm a big fan of him. But Kathy Strain, I love her kind of boots on the ground, archaeological kind of look into the phenomenon. And she's a member of the NAWAC too. So, Lyle Blackburn, before Lyle and I worked on Boggy, I was a fan of his Beast of Boggy Creek book. So, and what drew me to Lyle's work was the fact that his approach is really similar to what we do, which is basically just, here's the evidence, here are the stories. I'm not going to try to sway you one way or the other. And I think Lyle might even be a little more skeptical than he lets on, which I kind of appreciate. He's pretty level-headed about the whole thing. So I'm a fan of his, and Loren Coleman obviously is those are kind of my big three right there. I mean, it's Kathy, Lyle, and Loren. I kind of like those three, and maybe it's telling that their outlook on the subject is very similar to mine, which is like, flesh and blood, ape-like creature. But I don't know. There's a lot of different writers I'm familiar with and whose work I've read, but those are the three I like the most, I think. I'm a big fan of Brian Brown because he got me into all this with the Bigfoot show. But he doesn't, he's not like writing books or anything, but I liked his take on it back when he had a show.
All right. Well, you won't believe this, but Squatchmas is over. Yep, it's true. We're all out of time. But you know what? Before we go, there's a lot of people here in Newfoundland who've never heard of your podcast before. I'm sure of it. I know for a fact. I know, because they're on my email list and they're friends of mine. So where can people find you guys and subscribe to your show?
SasWhat.podbean.com is where you can download individual episodes. It's on iTunes and Stitcher. There is, I believe, a SasWhat.com still floating around. It has not been updated since like episode 30-something. And we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the show is about to kick into a whole new life cycle with Mark and Andy going at it. So
I'm glad I got to be here at the transition. I think that's so cool. Mark, best of luck to you.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We're looking forward to it. You know, I think the dynamic will be different for sure. Probably a little bit goofier because my son and I tend to start riffing all kinds of things when we do this. But at the same time, I think the show is going to be maybe a little more regimented at first anyway, and we're going to try and do more of a segmented approach just to get the feel for what SasWhat's going to be.
Well, there you go. There you go, guys. It's going to happen all in the new year, I'm sure. Guys, Merry Christmas to you both. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Well, the time to say goodbye is upon us. But don't worry, you can keep track of the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast very easily. It's available on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, and TuneIn Radio. Just look for the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast banner. Of course, if you'd like to keep up to date, you can always check out the Odd the Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast Facebook page, drop a like, and every single time a new show goes up, you'll be notified. You can also follow me, John Mallard, on Twitter at ODDTONFLD. That's Odd to Newfoundland. Get your latest news on the podcast as well as the ever-popular Parajoke of the Day. From the oldest city in North America, I bid you adieu from the Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast.